So have you ever picked a tool up and tried to use it in a way that really wasn't designed? Here, for example, I remember growing up as a kid, we would try to take screwdrivers and hammer nails with it just because the hammer was too heavy. And we realized it didn't work out so well. And then sometimes we take one tool and we try to make it work for something different, and it doesn't work out that well. And matter of fact, many times we sort of just make things worse, right? I remember having this scooter that I bought. It was a little gas scooter, and after trying it out and bringing it home, and I blew a tire, I was going to change it out. And what ended up happening, it took me 4 hours because I didn't have the right tool. I broke down and said, you know what, I'm just going to get the right tool. Got the right tool, finished the job in minutes. I got to thinking just for a minute, and this is something that I wanted to share with you is that God has designed you with purpose. As a matter of fact, God created you on purpose with purpose. And so go ahead and grab a Bible, open up to Psalm 139. We're going to be looking at verses 13 through 18, and we're going to be seeing again that God created you on purpose with purpose. So let's go ahead and dive right in. And before we get started, I just want to say thank you for joining us. And if you like what you're seeing today, we want to encourage you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the like button down there, and go ahead and click the notification bell. And that way you'll get notifications every time we make a new video, whether it's for this series or whether it's just for an individual lesson or whatever the case may be. But again, we just want to welcome you to the community of Living by Fire. So God created you on purpose with purpose. And today we're going to be looking at three realities. Count them, three realities of showing us that God created us on purpose with purpose. So let's go ahead and read the scriptures real quick. It says this in verses 13 through 18 says, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God! How vast is the sum of them! If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake and I am still with you." And the very first thing we're going to see is that God created you intentionally. He created you intentionally. I want you to think about this for a minute. If you've ever built a house, right? If you ever built a house, we don't just build a house by accident, do we? We sit down, we draw out the plans, and we figure out exactly what paint colors we're going to use, the siding, even down to the color of the shingles on the roof, how big's the house. We go through this with intentionality because this is exactly what we want in building a house. And likewise, if you've ever gone down and had a car built, and one of the places I know that is sort of near our house is the Corvette factory. And you can actually sit and have a car designed and built for you. The colors, the different engine, the whatever the case may be. But regardless, you have intentionality with this. And this is what David is recognizing starting at verse 13, is that God intentionally designed him. God is this great craftsman. He is an absolute master craftsman at everything that he makes. And when he sits down and he created you and he created me, he did it intentionally. It wasn't an accident. My friends, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are in your birth, whether you're a survivor of an abortion or whether that you are a product of a sexual assault or whatever the case may be, or maybe you feel like that we in our society calls this an unplanned pregnancy. Well, I'm here to tell you there is no such thing at all as an unplanned pregnancy. God intentionally designed you from even before the moment of conception, all the way through conception. Listen, it is mathematically impossible for the gene sequences to create you just by chance. It is impossible for that to happen. But God, what God has done is that he's created all of us with intentionality. And that kind of leads us into the second reality is this. Second reality is this, is that God gave you purpose before you were conceived. He gave you purpose. And take a look over it, starting in verses 13 and 14. It says this, For you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And come down to verse 16. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. Okay, when we go and we build this house, I go back because my wife and I actually had the experience of having a house built for us. We went to a place called Ball Homes and we picked out a plan. We picked out the lot. We picked out all of the colors and the cabinets and everything that went into this house. But it wasn't just once we built the house, that what was the purpose of the house? Like, we didn't walk away from it. We just didn't say, okay, build all of this, and then after that, we're done. We're just going to walk away. But I'm here to tell you that God does this, was that when he created you, he didn't just walk away from you. He didn't walk away from you at all. In fact, what he did do, even before you were conceived, he knew you were going to live a life. And he planned it out from the moment of conception all the way through to the time that you breathe your last. He laid out every single day that you were going to have. Every single one of them. And why did he do this? Because he had purpose for you. That's something that King David said in his Psalms. He says this, is that in your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me. God lays out all of your days because he has a plan for your life. And one of the verses that we love to quote is Jeremiah 29:18. It says this, is that I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, right? God knows the plans even before you see them. My friends, you are no accident, and it doesn't matter what society may tell you. We love this whole thing of, unplanned pregnancies and pro-choice, and if it's an unplanned pregnancy, you can just terminate the pregnancy. My friends, God has a reason and a purpose for you since even before conception all the way through. He has a plan for your life. And how do we know that plan? Well, let me show you just for a minute. Let's go ahead and continue on to verses 17 and 18. He says, how precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake and I am still with you. And the third reality, we know that God has created us on purpose, with purpose, is that he didn't stop with making you physically. He is always thinking about you. Now, going back to a house, do we give up once we moved into the house? We just give up on it? Do we just not think about, we may have maintenance costs or whatever the case may be? Or do we think about, we're going to have all of these memories? Maybe you're a young couple right now, then you've bought your first house, or you're looking at, or you're even renting your first house. My friends, we look at this house with intentionality. We have plans for it, that we're going to grow our kids in it. We're going to raise our kids, and they're going to move on, and we're going to build a life and a future together. And we think about this house constantly. We don't walk away from this house at all. And yet this is exactly what David is recognizing, what God is saying to him. David says, you think about me a lot. I mean, that's just mind-blowing that God would constantly think not only about you and me, but about all the other 7.5, nearly 8 billion people that are on the face of the earth. God thinks about every single person constantly. And why does he think about us? Is that he loves us. You are no accident. God has a purpose for your life. And God is constantly thinking about us because he loves us. And how do we find out exactly what plan that God has for us? What purpose does he have in our life? We ask him. We ask him. Because the God of the universe wants us to communicate with him because he loves us. He's always thinking about us. And how do we know that he loves us? Because he gave his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for us. That's how we know that he loves us. He hasn't given up on you. Just because maybe the circumstances of your birth weren't exactly the best of circumstances, or maybe the circumstances of your conception wasn't exactly the best circumstances of your conception. But regardless of all of that, God has purpose for you. And that is the third, that's the third thing in this series that we are discovering, what God says about us. Okay? God says to you and to me, I created you on purpose, with purpose. And I am always there thinking about you. And I want you to enjoy me as Abba Father. Thank you all so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.